threats are connected to threats in other states. Plus, rain and hail creating an active day for storms around Arizona, and why a judge is dismissing the Salt River Horses lawsuit. Coming up next at 6.
Finally tonight, take a second and imagine what the world will be like 3 decades from now. Will there be flying cars? Will we look back and laugh about how primitive today's cutting-edge technology seems? That was the challenge facing the movie makers behind Back to the Future Part 2 when 1980's Marty McFly fired up the flux capacitor and time traveled to October 21st, 2015, which happens to be tomorrow's date. So we thought NBC's Kevin Tibbles should take a look at how the movie's version of what 2015 would be like stacks up to reality.
Ready for a little time travel?
When are we?
Wednesday, October 21st, 2015.
Let's go back exactly 30 years when, in 1985, Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd blasted onto the screen in Back to the Future. And to celebrate, we've met Ken Smith, who, frankly, is the spitting image of Marty McFly. He spent 3 years rebuilding a souped-up DeLorean to be his time machine.
Why did that movie have staying power?
Sense of family, sense of possibility.
So how many of those future visions back in 1985 came true? Well, there was the hoverboard. Pretty soon, we might be able to buy one just like it. How about video phone calls?
Hey!
Everyone's doing that these days. They're everywhere. Back in the present, the town of Reston, Virginia has renamed itself Hill Valley for the anniversary.
It is a wonderful community, and it's nice to connect it to Hill Valley.
The entire Back to the Future trilogy will be screened here, with proceeds going to the Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson's research. There's a time travel dreamer in all of us.
I think I'd like to do the Roaring 20s.
I'd love to go to the future. I'd love to see. I'd love to see if we make it to Mars.
As for Ken Smith, there's no time like the present to celebrate his favorite film with the future generation of fans. Kevin Tibbles, NBC News, Reston. Make that Hill Valley, Virginia.
And that'll do it for us on this Tuesday night. I'm Lester Holt. For all of us at NBC News, thank you for watching and good night.
From 12 News, this is Arizona Nightly News.
Good evening. We're starting with breaking news. We have new details at this second on 3 Valley school bomb threats. School officials working to get kids to parents.
Out by Tom Mattingly today, and the spectacular site captured just off Route 74 near Morristown, a little bit northwest of the valley, just south of Wickenburg.
Air 15 didn't have to go far to find cars submerged in the rising waters today. Fast-moving washes and roads just covered in muddy water and debris, creating a busy day for our rescue crews.
Check out the skies over Desert Ridge. Huge bands of rain and ominous dark clouds. This was a scene throughout much of the day in that part of the valley.
Around the valley, and also hail
and those sounds. Check out all the rain that's been coming down in Anthem off and on for the better part of the day. Huge wet raindrops and hail pummeling this backyard, leaving behind several inches of standing water there in just moments.
We have live team coverage on this fall storm. Justin Becerra and Mary Ellen Resendez have been out in the elements all day.
But let's start with Chief Meteorologist Amber Sullins on this one. And Amber, walk us through tonight. What do we need to watch out for?
So let me take you through the rain chances. First of all, the valley's in the clear right now, but as we head into about 7 o'clock tonight, we're going to up the shower chance to about 20 to 30% across central Arizona, including the valley. We're going to be up to a 50% chance by 11 o'clock tonight, continuing through tomorrow morning. So that's our next best bet for rain across the area. We're talking late tonight, early tomorrow morning, the exact time frame that we told you about yesterday as well. That has not changed. Now into the next day and even into Thursday, we're looking at those shower chances to dwindle, but still stick around. They'll be down to about 10% by tomorrow evening. And then we also have a 10% chance of a stray shower on Thursday, just with some lingering moisture over the area. But again, the next 12 hours will be key across the valley. And here's ABC 15 Desert Doppler right now. Just a few.
This area, funnel cloud spotted today in Morristown. Yeah, look at that right there in this.
Later on this evening. But here's Desert Doppler up in the higher terrain.
ABC News Wall Street Journal has another new poll out. Trump at 25%. the highest he's ever scored in that poll. Those who said it could never happen are starting to bite their tongues.
I do think he can win the nomination. I wouldn't have said that 6 weeks ago, but I think he can.
Sounds like a lot of people I talked to.
I think he's an incredibly skilled politician.
I know all of us dismissed Trump early on. All of it, the so-called experts, is summer fling, momentary amusement. I am beginning to believe he could be elected president of the United States.
The Republican establishment for the first time saying off the record, this guy could win. I mean, the top people. I've heard that from everybody. I don't hear anybody saying he can't win the nomination anymore.
And talk like that has touched off headlines like these, as Byron York writes about, quote, a panicked Republican establishment getting ready for war against Trump. Joining me now, Fox News senior political analyst Brit Hume. Brit, great to see you. Before we get into Trump, let's just start with the news that's broken in the House tonight on Paul Ryan, who's now saying he will run for Speaker, assuming he has the votes. What does it mean, and what does it tell us?
Well, he didn't quite say that, Megyn. What he said was that he would run for Speaker and would take the job if certain conditions were met, if he could be what he called a unifying figure. Now, unifying figures in the Republican caucus these days are not exactly thick on the ground. They're not exactly coming in the windows.
Got really scared and backed out.
It was awful. Over there is awful.
Is it?
Yeah, it's really deep. The water really deep.
So I saw you backed out.
Yeah, they told me to back out. I couldn't go through there. Oh, yeah. Because the water's too deep.
Come to them and see what they wanted. But Ryan was laying down a list of conditions and said if he could be a unifying figure. So he's not just talking about getting the votes. In fact, he...
Around in the West Valley, back out here live in Wickenburg. I talked with the town's manager a little bit.
Incident as a whoosh before the car started flowing backward with the current of the water.
And take the 73/100ths of an inch. Wickenburg, 1 in 40.
Drove into a flooded street with...
It may well not come to pass.
John Boehner better get comfortable in that spot, which he's agreed to hold for the time being.
I think Boehner's really eager for the Ryan thing to happen because he doesn't want to stick around any longer than he absolutely has to.
Take the baton.
Yeah, right. he wants out.
All right, so but a man who does not want out is Donald Trump. And what do you make of the Byron York piece today, suggesting that the Republican, quote, establishment is preparing for war against Trump, saying if we have to take him down, we will. The negative ads will start. We'll go after him in Iowa. We'll go after him in New Hampshire. We're not letting this man get the GOP nomination.
Well, I think the world of Byron, and I suspect that headline that you're showing on the screen right now is not something he would have written. Somebody else wrote that headline. They're not quite at any kind of panic stage yet, but I think it's become clear, because it's getting late, Megyn, that his lead has persisted it so long, as you just described. You're looking at the kind of percentage of the vote that in a place like Iowa, or even perhaps even New Hampshire, could be the winning percentage. So you posit Donald Trump having won Iowa and New Hampshire or New Hampshire, and going into South Carolina, where he has a lot of support. You're looking at somebody who's got a tremendous head of steam and might become impossible to stop with a disaffected Republican electorate. So his nomination now becomes something that everybody has to say is possible. I wouldn't go as far as Chris and say that I can quite picture him elected president, because I think, remember, a lot of Democratic voters have a say in that, and his negatives are pretty high with Republicans. One can only imagine what they are like with most Democrats.
Mm-hmm. But, you know, one of the points that Byron makes is the Giuliani analogy that people point to doesn't hold water, because Giuliani was ahead. He was ahead for a while, but he was never polling ahead in Iowa, and New Hampshire, and South Carolina.
That's right.
The way that Trump has been consistently. Right. And so do you see greater staying power in Trump's numbers than we've seen in the past?
I do. I think the question is whether when people begin to fall by the wayside, which it hasn't really happened yet. A couple of people have dropped out, and it looks like there may be a few more soon. But it depends on where their support goes and whether somebody emerges as the leading alternative to him. Now, that could be Ben Carson, which would make sense in a way, because after all, another constant in this cycle so far on the Republican side has been the enchantment with outsiders, and I don't mean people who've been sort of outsiders within the system. I mean complete outsiders, which is what Trump is, and it's also what Ben Carson is.
You've got sort of the brash, bold businessman outsider, and then you've got the more gentlemanly doctor outsider in those two guys, and they are close in a lot of these polls, but Trump continues to lead in all but, I think there was an Investor Business Daily poll that put Carson at 1. Britt, great to see you.
Thanks, Megyn.
Also breaking tonight, new signs today pointing to Vice President Joe Biden actually jumping into this race for the Democratic nomination. But with former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton so far ahead in the polls,
3 calls happened in such a short amount of time. Investigators are now looking to find out if this was a swatting situation where the caller phones police with a fake emergency.
We're working to learn more about a woman hit and killed in Scottsdale this morning. Investigators still piecing together this deadly crash. The victim was found in the road. We know the driver left the scene initially, but later came back. Officers have been questioning that driver, and there's no word yet if there's been an arrest in this case.
I'm Joe Bartels in Phoenix. The Arizona Department of Health Services is trying to figure out why there's been such a huge spike in the number of reported valley fever.
At City 12 News.
Absolutely. Thank you, Charlie. Well, more storms and rain is expected tonight and also tomorrow. Get our weather team's instant updates with the 12 News app. New tonight, the lawsuit to save the Salt River horses tossed out of court, but the group fighting to save the iconic animals says that could clear the way, actually, for a deal with the feds. Bram Lesnick is live in the news.
Of dedicated, hard-working Americans, but its hierarchy is not comfortable with many of the policies that I have laid forth, and frankly, I'm not that comfortable with many of theirs. For this reason, I'm withdrawing from any consideration of being the Democratic Party's nominee for the presidency.
Webb says he wasn't given the chance to have his voice heard last week during the first Democratic debate, and he's leaving open the possibility that he could still run as an independent.
Serious danger and not even knowing it.
Well, it's not too often you get a credit on your utility bill, but that's exactly what one Arizona company is doing. We'll tell you why they're giving customers a break. We've got those stories and much more straight ahead, right here on ABC 15 News at 6.
Moving a TV is a real